In today's episode, I feel the need to stop and take a moment to encourage you. Be that coach or trainer in your corner to sit you down and reset. There was a recent study that came out with some very disheartening research around young men in a certain age group who are just recycling these thoughts of inadequacy, feeling like they're not good enough. So we're going to unpack that, and hopefully by the time you finish listening to this episode, you'll know how to find and identify the perfection within your mess. Welcome back to another week of the Joshua Mentality. This, of course, is your wonderful host, Joshua. I just gave myself points for being wonderful. I hope you think I'm wonderful. That's the goal here. But anyways, welcome back to another week. Do you want to guess what week we're in now? If last week was 49, then that makes this week 48. 48, week 48. I said last week, some of you, I might be stressing out by reminding you of the countdown to the next year. But let me know in the comments. Let me know if it really is stressing you out with me reminding you of how many weeks we have left every week. I think it's a cool thing to keep your eye on. Adds a little bit of pressure, but the healthy kind, the good kind that adds some accountability to your plans and your goals. Because this year, I'm expecting greatness out of you. And so one of the ways I like to press down on you is by reminding you what week we're in. So with that, let's jump into this week's conversation. And I wanted to do things a little different this week. Usually I like to bring things you can leave with, pointers you can implement immediately into your life. I think that's important to not only approach things from a conceptual perspective, but from a practical perspective, right? We want to be able to take tools, and immediately apply them to life. And so that's usually the goal. But today I want to do something a little different. I want to encourage you for a moment. So here's how I want you to think about this. I want you to think about it like you're a boxer and you're in round 3, 4, whatever, you pick a round. And the bell just rang. So now you're in between that round, you're coming back to your corner and you see my face because I'm your coach, your trainer. And I'm going to sit you down for just these 30 seconds and help you reset before you go back out there into that ring. That's how I want you to think about this, okay? And the reason being is because those of you who listened to the first episode, you know that by trade, I am an organizational psychologist. So what does that mean? That just simply means I like psychology. I like how psychology plays into the business world and our individual lives. And so recently I read an article by looking at some psychological studies and things on behavior, and I came across something that really just affirmed what I already felt, and I got the sense that this was really something that's new but has been bubbling up for a while among men. And this study reaffirmed it. It's a study by The Independent, and they looked at an age range of 22 to 38-year-old men. And what they discovered is that there's a growing mentality among that age group of not feeling good enough. Just a growing trend of men in that age group not feeling good enough for various reasons. It could be because the pressure to find love or the pressure to succeed in their careers or meet expectations from peers, family, or themselves. And all of this just kind of bubbling up pressure. And it leads to not feeling good enough. But get this, that's not even the most surprising aspect that I found from this article. One of the most surprising facts that was pointed out is that most of the pressure that this age group felt came from the pressure to feel like they need to be the best version of themselves. Now think about how jarring that had to be for someone like me, who every week I like to get on here and remind you to be the best version of yourself, to maximize your life potential, that you being here is rooted in success. Your life purpose is rooted in success. Imagine how it felt reading the facts of that research. that even in doing some of this work, which I do it because I'm passionate and I want to see you succeed and see you live a life of fulfillment, but also having to acknowledge that some of that may add some extra pressure on you. So while I have you in this corner and I have your attention, I want you to know that striving for the best version of yourself will never be without embracing the worst version of yourself. Let me say that again. Striving to maximize the best version of you will not come without embracing the worst version of you. Now, if you would please excuse me, I'm about to nerd out for a moment and go all psychological. Think about this. That phrase of not good enough, if we were to break that down, here's how that formula would look. We'd have reference point times value times reference point. Okay? Reference point times value times reference point. Here's what I mean. That word enough, there has to be a reference point, because how do we determine what enough is? What's our benchmark? What's our reference point to say whether you are good enough or not? That stems from external variables, which could either be, and these are just options, it could be the environment around you. It could be the things that you are looking at or setting your eyes on day in and day out that you attribute value to, and you attribute your own value to, whether it's consciously or subconsciously. It could be words from the people around you. So intake that you are taking in from friends or family. I want you to think about that. What is it? What is it that marks enough for you? Or maybe it's your own thoughts. Maybe it's internal. I talk in other episodes about self-deprecation and how sometimes we will say things in our mind over and over and over about ourselves. That what we're essentially doing is when we have these negative thoughts recycling in our mind, what we are doing is we are creating the reference point called enough. And we set the bar so high for ourselves without even realizing it. And so when it's time to measure up to that, we never will. Because we haven't really thought about or analyzed that word enough. What's the reference point there? If the reference point is your life purpose, like we've been talking about so much here, then there shouldn't be any pressure. Your life purpose is think of it more as a buffet, and you get to experience as little or as much of it as you want. And so that's something to be excited about, to be passionate about, because your reference point, the enough in your life, isn't relative to anyone else. It's only relative to you and determined by how much you want to encounter and experience. How much of that golden iceberg I keep talking about that you want to surface. And there's no pressure. There's no need to devalue your enough based on any of those variables I spoke about a second ago. So when it comes to the reference point, in order to reverse engineer this mentality, this thought, we got to change the reference point and stop allowing your reference point of enough to be determined by external factors when enough is really determined by eternal factors. Eternal meaning before you were even here on this earth in physical form, just the thought of your life by God was the beginning of your success. And you have to believe that. Because if you do believe that, then you know that you're already enough. You are already enough. So when that formula starts to come up in your mind, we just talked about not good enough, reference point times value times reference point. That middle portion, which I didn't get into, but that's the good portion, right? That's the value. And if you really look at this, if you picture what I'm telling you, reference point times value times reference point, if our reference points on the outer edges are both negative, they're negative connotations. The word not by itself is a negative connotation. And then you have enough, which we just talked about, and then that's a negative connotation. You know what it does? It smothers the value in the middle. Whatever good, whatever value that could be extracted from your life gets smothered because our reference points are off. And here's how I want to solidify this thought for you. I was recently playing around with my son in the afternoon, which is something that's kind of our little ritual now between him and my wife. We all kind of get together at the end of the evening and spend some time together, family time. On this particular day, I had ordered a mini tripod that I wanted to try out. It just came in. I hadn't had a chance to really mess around with it. And I ordered it for my phone to be able to capture videos and things like that I want to do. And so I thought, what better way to kind of experiment with this mini tripod than doing it with my son? And I can, kind of two birds with one stone thing. Not take time away from him, but spend both things together. So I decided to take some pictures with my son. And one thing you need to know about him is that he's very much like his dad, which means he is not too much of a fan of taking multiple pictures. Like we're good for one or two. After that, it's time's up. So of course, it was very hard to try to capture a good moment with him smiling or without him moving and making the picture blurry, which is how all the pictures came out. Either he wasn't smiling or the picture was blurry. And I just thought, oh my goodness, I cannot get a good picture with this boy. That was my reference point. My reference point was, I've been sitting here for the last 5 minutes trying to take a good picture, father-son moment. And I every time I hit the button, he'd be smiling. Every time I hit the button, he'd stop smiling, and that's what would come out in the picture. Or every time I hit the button, he'd start moving, and then that's what would come out in the picture. Blurry moment. And I just thought, all of these pictures, all 20 of them, I can't do nothing with this. They're not good enough. You with me? That was my thought. Until I discovered something that I'm sure has been out for a long time, but I'm camera illiterate, so I just discovered it. There's this thing called motion photos. And what motion photos allow you to do is they allow you to kind of scrub through, because when you took the picture, it was actually capturing the motion leading up to you taking the picture. So you're able to actually kind of reverse time. It's a really incredible feature that I'm just now coming to life about. You're able to kind of like go back in time in picture terms and capture that moment where he was smiling. In other words, you're able to go back from the reference point that you may have ended with that said the picture wasn't good, that things weren't going the way that you thought they would, but maybe you invested the time into this skill or that degree or that plan of major or whatever, and the reference point says you failed or you're not good enough. You're able to actually scroll back and find the good. How about that? You can actually in your life scroll back, scroll from whatever negative or poor reference point you've been using to define enough in your life. You can actually scroll back and focus on the good. Because the more you focus on the good, the more that the perception and the mentality around enough will change. And instead of those two reference points smothering the value will actually enhance the reference point. And the reference point, vice versa, will enhance the value. And that might be too deep for some of you all, so let me say it this way. The pressure that we talked about that led to this discussion, all that begins to lift when we begin to learn the habit of identifying the perfection within our mess. like I said in the beginning, all of us, we are in some way or in many ways a mess. All of our lives, in some way or in many ways, tries to point out different reference points that will say we aren't good enough. But when we learn to accept all of the crap, all of the mess, and we treat it like a bad photo and we just scrub through that bad boy to find the good in that mess, the perfection in that mess, then not only do we begin to see higher value of ourselves, but we also begin to discover some valuable moments that we may have missed had we not scrubbed through the mess, scrubbed through those unhealthy patterns of thought, those inadequate, thoughts and negative things that just recur in our mind over and over. And again, this might be too deep for some of y'all on a Wednesday, but I found it very, very important to take a second and focus your attention on the fact that you are good enough. And within whatever mess is going on in your life, or whatever areas you're struggling through or trying to grow out of, whatever growing pains you're going through, keep scrubbing past the low points and focusing on the good. Because from that good, your reference point will increase and the value will continue to increase. And before you know it, you will look up and your mentality will have completely transformed and your growth will have completely accelerated beyond what you could have even imagined, to levels that you didn't even think were possible. That's what I want for your life. That's what's intended for your life. Find the perfection in the mess. Scrub through and find the perfection within the mess. Doesn't mean that, and by perfection, I don't mean that everything's perfect. I mean by perfection that little moment is perfect for you because it's the value of the moment. It's the value of the experience. It's the value of the growth. And ultimately, it's you learning to accept the best of you and embrace the best of you as well as the worst of you. That's life. That's moving towards your destiny. That's changing the reference point of enough. It's knowing, well, maybe I'm not. This is what I am not, but this is who I am. And I embrace it all. God didn't make me to be that, but God did make me to be this. And so I'm going to embrace it all. I'm going to find the value in it all. I'm going to scrub through this thing and focus my attention, my heart, my eyes, my ears, my mind, all of it on the good. Am I getting through? I hope so. There was a poet I once heard that said, God likes to use crooked sticks to make straight lines. And I think that's a great bow to put on this conversation for today. Because while you ain't perfect, you are a chosen instrument. Your life is a chosen conduit of value. And that's all that matters. That's all you need to focus on, baby. Because that's all you need to go out and be enough. That's all you need to know to go out and fulfill everything your life was created for, without the pressure, but with more assurance, knowing that you are enough. And I hope you found this to be encouraging. I hope that this conversation, as you go out there and continue the next rounds of life, I hope this little pause here for a second was something that you found to be encouraging and hopefully inspiring to continue pressing forward. We all need that person in our corner, rooting us on, cheering us on. And it's my pleasure to serve in that role for you if you are someone that is tuning into this thing and embracing that kind of support. So I don't take this lightly. I think it's something that's very important for us all to sharpen each other's iron. And you all sharpen mine all the time by making sure that I show up every week to give value and add value to your life. So I hope I'm doing just that. Let me know in the comments. Give me some feedback. Let me know what stood out to you in today's episode. Maybe there was a nugget or a line that stood out in this conversation. I hope you took at least something from it. But let me know in the comments. Also, I just thought about this. Also, thank you to those of you who have gone on. I think it was Apple Podcasts. I saw this. We are at a 5-star rating for the Joshua Mentality podcast. And that is all from the Joshua Mentality tribe members, those of you who listen in, who went and rated the show. Or, I told y'all before, some people hate when I call it a show, but whatever, you all rated the episodes, the show, whatever. I appreciate you. And I just want to tell you thank you. That means a lot. Every time I don't feel like putting another piece of content together, or don't think I got something valuable to offer, it's always so encouraging to see that feedback and see that you all are indeed getting some value from this. And like I told you all in the beginning of this thing, I want to walk it out with you. I know how it is to walk alone, and I don't want anybody walking through this life and trying to maximize their life purpose alone. So I said a lot just to say thank you. All right. Thank you. So for today's episode, tune in next week to the Joshua Mentality. And until then, please don't you forget it. Success is your destiny.